to 160% it steals. I will have to clear every mode, earn every star, and... No. Fuck that. Fuck this game and fuck everybody that created it. It Steals is a pure torture experiment made by a genius sadist that after released a game that made millions. Welcome to It Steals. I'm so fucked, dude. Please stop! You see, I was always fond of horror games. I think this is one of the most creative genres in the entire video game industry. But I was never much of a player. I played Resident Evil Requiem and I was absolutely petrified by this creature. And I also played, well, I mean, Cyberpunk was pretty scary at times, so I was going into It Steals pretty much blind, and I was not expecting the amount of times that I felt genuine anxiety and dread playing through this godforsaken game. But let me tell you a little bit about this creator first. Zeekers was born in 2002. While other developers his age were trying to figure out how code actually works, he was already creating horror games on Roblox, such as Lightbulb and Silent Dark. These were tests for ideas about how monsters should behave and what makes a player feel genuinely unsafe. In July of 2020, It Steals quietly launched on Steam. Then in October of 2023, Lethal Company took the game in the world by storm. With 9.4 million copies sold, it became the premier co-op horror game of all time. That's when people started digging deeper. Who made it, and what had they released before? This is how so many people discovered It Steals, as a footnote to something enormous. A window into where Zeekers was before the world knew his name. And that's all you're getting for now. We'll come back to what it all means at the end, because it means a lot more once you actually see what this game does to you. On paper, It Steals sounds like something you'd describe to a friend in about 10 seconds. You're in a dark maze, there are blue orbs scattered through it, collect all of them without dying. And that's the whole game. Except that it isn't, because the thing sharing the maze with you changes everything. Still, the core structure is basically Pac-Man, if Pac-Man was designed by somebody who wanted you to feel genuinely haunted, but the challenge is whatever is currently in the maze with you. And in It Steals, that changes completely depending on which mode you are playing. So there are 5 main modes that get progressively harder, and each one introduces a different monster with a completely different set of rules. So let's begin with the first one. Classic mode is effectively the game's tutorial, and it immediately establishes a visual language that is almost aggressively minimal. You're dropped into dark corridors with pixelated edges that blur everything just enough to make sure you can't see shit. There is almost no music, just the ambient sounds of a maze and the specific audio cues that you'll eventually learn to dread. You're equipped with a flashlight that doesn't help much, and a radar to help find the orbs. You need 14 of them to finish the level. I was actually doing quite well. I managed to find 6 without any issues, until the game decided it was done being nice. Иди нахуй. You see, you're stuck in here with a guy called Legs. Legs is afraid of a flashlight. If you catch him in your beam, he scuttles away into the dark. At first, I didn't realize it was the core mechanic, but once you get a hang of it, it feels like a walk in a park. Oh no. Why does it tell me to run? Где-то там. Что? Ага. You see, after you flash Legs a certain number of times, he doesn't get scared anymore. He gets enraged. At that point, your only option is to run, which is a nightmare in the maze without the map. And if you try to use radar while running, you're dead. The radar in this game requires you to come to a complete halt and wait for it to load. In the middle of a chase, that's not an option. So you end up sprinting blindly. And once the chase finally ends, you're completely disoriented and forced to find your way back to the orbs while giving the monster even more time to plan his next hit. But there's a technical detail here that I found fascinating. There is no sensitivity option. The default sensitivity is set to significantly higher than I would ever normally play at. When you combine that high sensitivity with the delayed hand animations during the jump scare, it creates this incredible physical reaction. Your hands move involuntarily in real life, and the high sensitivity translates that panic directly into the game. It makes every encounter feel incredibly kinetic and cinematic. When 2 orbs remain, the counter reads 200. Not 2, but 200. You're almost at the finish line, and the display tells you that you have 200 orbs left to collect, which is an objectively absurd number, and for one disorienting second you believe it. That's the whole trick. It doesn't need to fool you for long, just long enough to break your rhythm at the exact moment you thought you were done. Moreover, legs can change its size from red to blue and start emitting the exact sound the orbs make. It finds the corner, somewhere in the maze, and stands there, perfectly still, glowing the right color, making the right noise, waiting for you to walk towards it. The radar shows a blue dot. You move towards the blue dot. The blue dot moves towards you. I see one. Oh, I see a guy. Oh, no! I just really hope that you can see what an absolute maniac Zeekerss is. But still, I was able to complete the level without any deaths, which I was really proud of. However, after this optimistic segment, I came to realize that this is going to be bad. Yeah! Только начало. Фу, блядь. There's no way out. Okay. There's only nature. Further in. I think what classic mode is actually teaching you is that your perception in this game is a tool the game has access to. It will use that tool against you whenever it wants. Every mode after this is built on that principle. Each one finds a different way to make you doubt what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and what you think you understand about where the threat is coming from. 9 orbs instead of 14. That sounds like a relief until you realize what Zeekerss took away to make it feel that way. The flashlight is gone. In its place you have a camera with a battery meter, and every single time you use it, the meter drops. That's the entire change. Same monster, same dark maze, same basic objective. And somehow the entire emotional texture of the game shifts completely. Without a flashlight, you cannot see where the threat is coming from. You're forced to rely entirely on sound, which is terrifying enough on its own, but there is an extra layer of cruelty: the timing. He will only run away if you catch him perfectly in a shot. Until he doesn't. What? Okay, blood. Oi, blood. In shutter mode, Legs runs faster than you. Running away isn't a strategy anymore, it's just the thing you do between flashes. You turn, flash, gain 2 seconds, turn again, flash again, gain 2 more seconds. Repeat it until it finally decides to settle back into the dark. Each flash during the chase is the charge you won't have during the quiet part that follows. The one mercy is that the orbs recharge your battery, and because of that, I've never actually struggled with the power management. What I did struggle with was the second enraged state. It's just impossible to survive. He is simply too fast for human brain to process. It took me a massive amount of choice and more than a few genuine heart attacks to finally get through it. Yes. Oh, fuck this game. Okay, fuck. In the end, the game shows you a Polaroid slideshow. There is a whimsical music. Every photo you took off Legs during the run displayed one by one. The music makes it charming. The context makes it awful. It's a reminder of how close it was able to get to you. What Shutter Mode is actually demonstrating is that scarcity doesn't change how hard the challenge is, it changes your relationship to every decision made inside that challenge. The monster didn't evolve, your tools got constrained and your visibility got removed, and the thing you practiced for 20 minutes in Classic Mode got turned into something the game uses against you. Which I think tells you something precise about how Zeekerss thinks about fear. It's removing the thing you were relying on to feel safe, and then waiting to see how long it takes you to build something new to rely on instead. The third mode loads and 3 prompts appear on screen. F for flashlight, control to crouch, and then the third line that says, "You're it." Your first instinct is that the game finally flipped. You've been the prey twice now, this time you're haunting. Except that's not what's happening at all. If you find Hide and Seeker, yes, this is literally his name, it becomes your turn to hide. You have 5 seconds to find cover, after which he begins the search phase. You need to turn off your flashlight and crouch down, hiding behind boxes or shelves. The longer you stay hidden, the faster hide-and-seeker becomes. If he spots you again, you'll have to run. He'll start racing towards you, breaking through walls to catch you. Keep running until you no longer hear the sound of his footsteps. After that, you'll become it, and the cycle will repeat. That is, if you find him. So all you need to do is to not look for him and you win. Well, maybe also don't get close to him, which I did, and on my second try I was completely avoiding him while he was teleporting from orb to orb, and I have never felt so calm in this game until... Okay, 2 more. No, 1 more. I don't care, I don't care, I literally... It's been fun. The end of this level is spooky and doesn't tell us much, but I do feel that I cheesed the game, and I do not give a shit because the next level is so much worse. Living Halls is the second hardest level of its steals. The game didn't tell me much from the start because I basically spawned in the wrong vault, but I had a timer and a beeping sound. Yes. So I let the timer run out and died. The second time that I spawned, the writing on the wall explained to me that I have a sensor that beeps. It goes slow when the nearest enemy is far, faster as a gap closes, and rapid fire when something is close enough that turning around is a bad idea. Then there is the timer. We have 120 seconds to explore the map and collect the orbs. At 25 seconds, your flashlight begins to dim and flicker. At 8 seconds, a distinct pulsing noise cuts through everything else. At 2 seconds, if you're not inside the vault, the light goes out completely. And if that's the case, you will meet wall monsters. See, every previous encounter thread gave you something to react to. A sound, a flash of red, a creature that at least occupied the space you could identify as not wall. The wall monsters are the wall. Bodies covered in vein-like textures that matches the surrounding stone exactly. 12 diamond-shaped red eyes folded flat and hidden, sitting completely still when you look at them. So each time you have 2 minutes to collect as much orbs as you can, while staying close and remembering the path to the vault, while avoiding the monsters that work like weeping angels. And if you get close to them, well... The vaults themselves have a pretty interesting design, as there are 3 of them, and each one is different. Some of them show tips, and one of them shows an entire map of a maze, which makes me think that it never changes, though I'm not really sure whether all the previous ones were randomized. But while waiting for the timer to reset, you can also sometimes catch a message that the walls are sending you that indicates that they are toying with us. So this mode requires a lot of playing, because with each time you use the vault, walls become more aggressive. So basically it looks like this. You spawn on the vault and try to collect as much orbs as you can, taking as much risks as you can. Then trying to make it to the second vault in time, and now you would collect the orbs a lot more carefully and try to leave the last ones close to each other so they're easy to snag. Then on the third run, you just go and pray. But I cannot stress enough how difficult that is, because wall monsters are really difficult to see, and there are also 5 of them. And the sensor emits light depending on whether you're looking at the direction of the monster or not, but I didn't know that. So just hearing an erratic beeping while looking around trying to find the guy and not turn my back towards him is terrifying. Then imagine having 2 or 3 of them around. I have spent almost an hour in the living halls while I have never spent more than 20 minutes on any other level. Just look at how intense my last run was. So you collect the 19th orb and something shifts. The wall monsters vanished instantly. All 5, no sound. 5 seconds of silence. Real silence. Sensor is quiet, timer is gone. Just the ambient hum of a maze that has nothing moving in it. Something registers as wrong about that silence. But the run is done, and a part of your brain that has been managing timers and sensor readings and vault location for the past hour is already starting to decompress. Then every wall turns around. Not some walls, every wall. The entire maze rotates to face you and shows you 12 glowing red eyes per panel. Hundreds of them. The full geometry of a space you just spent an hour navigating, and every inch of it was watching. The mode isn't called Living Walls, it's called Living Halls. The halls were alive the whole time. The 5 wall monsters you were tracking were the ones that moved. The rest just watched you work. The 5th mode gives you something none of the previous 4 ever offered: equality. The Phantom can't see you. You can't see the Phantom. Neither of you has the visual information about the other. After 4 modes of being tracked, stalked, and watched by things that always knew more about where you were than you did, this feels like it should be a relief. It isn't, because the Phantom navigates by sound and you make sound constantly, and the maze is full of furniture specifically so that both of you have something to listen to. Boxes, tables, lampshades, chairs. Objects scattered through every room with no apparent logic, but the furniture is a communication system. When the Phantom moves through a room, it knocks things over. You hear a crash from 2 corridors away and you know that something is there, moving in that direction, getting closer or further based on what falls next. Hold spacebar and your character holds their breath. Movement stops, noise output drops, and if the Phantom happens to be passing through your room at that exact moment, it keeps moving. Furniture tips over inches from where you are standing. The room sounds like something is tearing through it, and you're standing in the middle of that and not breathing, waiting for the sound to move away. But if you release it too soon, the Phantom finally hears you and the chase begins. Visibility returns to both of you simultaneously. A creature that was formless and now suddenly has a body and a specific location in the corridor behind you. You can see exactly what you were sharing the rooms with for the last 20 minutes. The body is run in ways that are hard to describe, and the knowledge of what was moving through those rooms while you held your breath turns out to be worse than not knowing was. And I also really like how the furniture flies past you during the chase sequence. However, I beat it on the second try, never figuring out how devices work. I mean, after all that I've been through, it's just way too simple if you have good hearing. But to be fair, I did get pretty lucky because as I was running from it, I just stumbled upon the final orb quite randomly. In the end, you walk towards an exit door that is alive, of course. But then the Phantom appears right behind you and you run towards a white beam of light through the furniture which piles on as you try to escape, but the end is inevitable. You were never meant to escape. So those were all the 5 stars. A very scary game, but by the end I got used to everything and the final level was a bit disappointing, but nonetheless, it was a great effort from the developer. So I closed the game, went outside and got engaged in some social interactions with my fellow human beings, and lived a happy life. Just kidding. I clicked the fucking star!
So fucked. This is such a fucked game.
Ooh boy, we have secret levels. I sure do love me some secret levels. Ooh, 40 orbs, that's great. That's great, and now Lex is 3 times faster. Well, that's just lovely. Oh, excuse me, it knows where you're looking and will actively avoid your sight with an insane swiftness. Oh, in that case, I'm gonna...
I mean, this is much better.
Well, it's not that bad. The labyrinth loads, and the first thing you notice is the sunlight. Actual daylight pouring down into the maze from an open sky above. The radar is showing a clean, detailed map of a full layout instead of a fuzzy smear you navigated the classic through. And you can run without any repercussions. Now, after 5 modes of claustrophobic darkness, this feels generous. But then, the Lex inevitably becomes enraged and, well, just look at it yourself. God damn it. Oh no, oh no, fuck, no I'm not, no I'm not, no I'm not, no I'm not. Fuck. Why are you fucking crying, dude? Okay. Did he teleport me? And no, in fact, I didn't get teleported, I just got insanely lucky. But it doesn't change the fact that during chase you absolutely cannot see anything as your flashlight turns off and the sun sets. It is so incredibly disorienting to try to get away from the Lex that is 3 times faster, I'll remind you. And the pure panic when you're frantically moving your flashlight back and forth trying to catch him is just... it's just dreadful. At the second stage of him being enraged, the whole map just turns sideways out of spite at that point, I think. And all of that just brings back the initial fear that I felt at the start of the game. Every skill Classic built into you has been thoroughly weaponized against you. Classic trains you to hug the wall. Lex learned that in the first 5 seconds of the labyrinth. Classic trains you to flash early and build distance. The labyrinth makes early flashes useless because you can't confirm who Lex is until he is already close. Every correct habit has been located and inverted. That's the specific cruelty of the labyrinth as a design choice. It didn't need to introduce a new monster or new mechanics to become something fundamentally harder than what came before. It just needed to take everything Classic taught you and make that knowledge into a thing working against you. But eventually, with a lot of dedication, I managed to beat this level. But there was no ending or anything. Please don't kill me. I saw you, right? Yep. Okay, 2 more. Please. Left. 1. 2. Thank fuck. Oh, thank fuck. Oh well. Just only 4 more to go. Shutter mode is the hardest level of its steals in my opinion. It is worse than a shutter mode. It's worse than a labyrinth. And it's worse than Living Halls combined. I would tell you how much it took me to finish it, but I don't know. I stopped recording because I've run out of memory. It's just a cruel level. The camera is the same, the battery meter is the same. Every mechanical principle you learn in shutter mode still applies. However, Lex, same to the labyrinth, knows when you're looking at it and actively tries to flank you. During chase, it is still dark. Remember when I said I couldn't see anything? Well, I still can't. And now, I have a camera that isn't the brightest device there is when you're not using it. Oh, and remember when I said that I've never actually struggled with the power management? Well, now I fucking do! I think the level is demonstrating something specific about the nature of a sustained attention under pressure. You can maintain it for a long time, but not indefinitely. And the moment it cracks is always the moment when the run is closest to being over. Shutter mode is engineered around that specific crack. Structure is designed to beat you when you're playing well but tired, which is a completely different kind of difficulty. But when I finally cleared it, I didn't feel like I won. I feel like something has ended. Somehow, yeah. If I just fucking be able to see things, that would be amazing. Yes! When you beat the level, like the last time, the photos are shown, but we can hear something different about the music. Okay, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be the only one to suffer. Honestly, it's literally the hide and seek, but everything is bigger and there are no walls, but the strategy is the same, just don't look at the guy, and I beat this first try, and I know I cheesed it and I still don't care. If you wanna look at the behavior of the monster, please check out Jedra's video. He did a great job with researching and explaining the lore of the game as well as its secrets, so I strongly recommend you to give it a watch if you're interested in the game and like deep dives. He'll said it's better than me, so I'll put the link into the description. But I think he stopped posting like 2 years ago, so maybe I could encourage him to make more stuff like this. But anyway, we are moving on. Oh, well, I guess that's it. Yeah, I know that's pretty anticlimactic, and I was oddly sad at that time. I was fearfully excited about the Live in Hall secret level. But I think if Zeekerss didn't continue, then there was a real reason behind it. Such as, he couldn't come up with anything interesting, which I think is respectable considering that otherwise the game would feel drawn out. In any case, we have 3 more achievements to get, one of which is really easy. We just have to replenish the batteries after running out.
Damn, it's so nice to return here. Fuck no.
Ой, блядь, я забыл, нахуй. Oh. What? I didn't replenish them. Okay, thank you. That was weird. Okay, next one is to beat the classic mode without moving forward, which took me a couple of tries, but after everything that I've been through, it wasn't bad at all. Oh, die. Yeah, no, not gonna do that. That's him, which was interesting. I hear it, please, please, please. Nice. And the last achievement is to beat the Phantom without the sound, with the tip, listen to a funny song. And here I finally learned how to use devices. So we get 2 of them, and after putting them down they take a long time to activate, but after they do, if the Phantom chases you, he will get stunned by these, and end the chase. So that's how I've completed it. That was it, 100% completion with the clickbait 160% title. Like, you get it? It's like 5 levels is 100%, and 3 more secret ones is 60%. I'm sorry. Zeekerss was building horror games on Roblox at 10 years old, and the creatures he put in Lightbulb and Silent Dark weren't aggressive in the way most horror games monsters are. They were patient. They used the space between you and them as a weapon rather than closing it immediately, which is a specific and counterintuitive design instinct for someone that age. And it's the same instinct run underneath every single mode in its steals. The Hide and Seeker is almost certainly a direct descendant of the creature from Lightbulb. Same child game framing around something that becomes catastrophically dangerous once the rules break. Zeekerss carried that creature forward from a Roblox project that he built as a teenager into a Steam release, and then 3 years after that into a cultural context of Lethal Company. The through line across 15 years of his work is the same principle repeated in different containers. The thread doing nothing is the thread that's most effective. What separates its steals from a broader field of indie horror isn't the darkness or the sound design, though both are doing serious work, is the decision to treat each mode as a completely separate psychological contract rather than a difficulty progression. Classic and Shudder mode have the same monster and the same maze logic. They don't feel like the same game though, because the contract had changed. One gave you an infinite resource, the other made the resource finite. That single alteration is what you're afraid of, which is a much harder thing to do and a more deliberate one. Each subsequent mode asks you to be afraid of something different, which requires you to build a completely new emotional relationship with the space each time you click into a new mode. The resource design is worth breaking down as its own system. Classic had infinite light, Shudder had limited flashes, and Shudder had limited flashes, bigger map, faster monster, and the sound that's working actively against you. That's 3 steps, each one removing exactly 1 layer of security, calculated to find the specific point where the removal produces the most psychological pressure. Zeekerss identified what each tool was giving you emotionally and took it away in a sequence most likely to leave you without anything to hold on to. There's also almost no music in its steals. What exists instead is an ambient dread and a functional audio. Zeekerss trains you across 8 modes to hear the game rather than see it. which is a harder perceptual skill and a more primal fear response. Vision is something humans feel some control over. Hearing is passive though. Sound arises whether you're ready or not, and the audio cues in the game were designed to be the primary threat indicators. Shudder mode is where design philosophy becomes completely explicit. It's not balanced, it's not trying to be winnable in the way most game design considers winnable. Legs takes unpredictable paths to specifically break the strategies that the earlier mode built into your muscle memory. The day-night cycle removes visibility the exact moment the pressure peaks. Zeekerss built the mode to find the precise threshold where accumulated stress overrides competence, and he found it. And he put the mode there on purpose, didn't he? The full picture, after 8 modes, is this. It Steals is a psychological experiment with a clear hypothesis. How much controlled fear can a player absorb across 8 different variations of the same core thread before they stop? Every mode is a variable. Every variable tests a different mechanism of fear. Reactive, environmental, sensory. The game is measuring where you break, and the measurement is the point. Zeekerss built a machine for producing a specific emotional state, then constructed 8 versions of that machine to isolate which components do the most damage. At first I was incredibly scared to be in the game and dreaded each moment I launched it, but now I'm closer to understanding exactly what had been done and why, closer to respect for the precision of it. That's what makes It Steals worth finishing. The moment you realize you spent the entire time inside a masterfully constructed experiment, and the scientist never once told you what he was testing. Oh, and by the way, it's $5 on Steam. There are 3 other games that Zeekerss made. It would be interesting to play them and do a deep dive on them or something.